Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and we have a huge show on tap for you today. We're going to be joined here off the top of the show by a guy by the name of Chad Hayson, who is a Liberty Flames guy to get all of the latest information about the Flames cancellation. Plus, we're going to be joined by none other than Tom Luginbill, and we're also going to be joined by a national champion in Jacob Hester. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we get you guys ready for an active weekend of college football only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow.
Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and without further ado, I have a special little surprise. So without further ado, I am going to roll the video right now. I have a surprise for everybody. Heath, I hope this is okay.
It just might be another classic battle between the Hogs and Dogs. Arkansas has back-to-back games against the Magnolia. They slammed shut the Bowl Dreams against the Rebels this past Saturday, and this weekend they have to come to Starkville. But Coach Kroom is undefeated in his entire coaching career, coming off a bye week at 1-0. For all the nice folks in Starkville trying to reverse the curse, WOBV and the Southern Grid, I'm Heath Hopkins.
Steven, you got your microphone on? I can't hear you, brother. Are you there?
Yes, let me bring in my co-host Heath. And man, I got to tell you, I wanted to show those highlights of you just simply because I wanted the fans to know that you are also in TV and have a broadcasting degree as well. I don't want, to make this show all about me. I wanted people to know that you are also well-versed in a lot of this stuff as well.
That's right, Steven. That's right. No.
Yes.
Wow, I think I ate that guy from those highlights, man. That was from the CSS days,
yes.
Man. The original SEC network. My claim to fame, 9 states, 11 million homes. Every Thursday night, coming to you, talking to you about SEC football. That was, I was a single man. I wasn't a father yet. Of course, I've been married. I'm a father of 4 now. So it seems like multiple lifetimes ago. Let me think about it. That was probably about 80 pounds ago for me.
Right. But, yeah, I just wanted to show those highlights, and hopefully that was okay with you.
Oh, yeah, you'll get a letter from my attorney here shortly. So,
so man, we have a huge show on tap for you guys today. And let me go on ahead without further ado. The Liberty game was canceled from Coastal Carolina due to the COVID outbreak. They're hitting Liberty pretty hard. So Coastal Carolina has replaced Liberty with BYU. So, without further ado, let's go on ahead and get to our contributor of A Sea of Red to go on ahead and talk about the Liberty Flames situation. Here is Chad Hessen. Chad, how are you doing today, sir?
Hey, Stingray. It was I love that video highlight, man. That was good stuff. I'm doing good.
Chad, I think you can exhale a little bit. Southern Miss named a head coach, and it's not named Hugh Freeze. So,
Yeah, I honestly wasn't too worried about Southern Miss, but yeah, there are others out there that we're still holding our breath on. But yeah, I'm glad to see Southern Miss got him a coach.
there you go. Chad, y'all have been the sweethearts of college football this year. Liberty has captured the hearts of so many people, and especially in this crazy COVID year where so many games get canceled. It's really helped Liberty because Liberty's kind of been bumped up and been seen on a national stage multiple times. But with things happening this week, talk about what's going on there on the mountain.
Yeah, so yeah, we had the recipe for an amazing season, and that is a quarterback that was unbelievable. Malik Willis has come. Nobody really knew how talented he was. Add that to Hugh Freeze and their coaching staff. You have a good staff and a good quarterback, good things are going to happen. And we have just, I like the visor. We got our head coach Hugh Freeze visors on. So it's been an amazing ride, and we just kind of it's been a whirlwind from everything from Twitter mentions and interactions with our site, with Liberty Football. The community has just grown. The national brand has come out there, and everything was going right. And then we had a field goal blocked at NC State, and then the game canceled this weekend, and it kind of feels like two big gut punches. But you know what? We are top 25. And honestly, we are so far along from where I thought we would be that this kind of it doesn't take the sting out as like it still stings a little, but you know, whenever early in the week we were hearing that, you know, some key playmakers had COVID, it was like, oh no, what's going to happen? Are we going to go play the game? College game day was there. It was a huge national stage, and you guys know how important, especially for an up and coming G5 program like us, who's an independent, any national exposure we can get. You know, that's why Hugh Freeze on the media circuit, going around doing Fine Bomb, talking with you guys and so on. That's so big for our school and our brand to let people know who we are. So we were really looking forward to game day and kind of putting our school out there. And to have that cancel was a huge bummer. You know, so but there are tons of silver linings that we've been able to find. So you know, we're kind of rested in that and looking forward to a bowl game. But it still was so. When I was in school, beat Coastal was the thing. We were in the Big South together. Right. So this was going to be an awesome way to renew that rivalry. And just kind of stinks that we didn't get to play that game. But such is life in college football in 2020, right?
Are you guys going to possibly make up a game, or have y'all shut it down and are focusing on the bowl game?
Yeah. So what the comments that Coach and the AD made yesterday led me to believe that we're just looking for a bowl game now. I know Coastal, making up the game with Coastal's pretty improbable. They're trying to go for a Sun Belt championship, so they have Troy next week and then the Sun Belt, and I don't think they want to risk that. Right. So, but as far as bringing in another team, let me scoot over in the camera.
That's okay. You're good.
As far as bringing in another
I like
team,
those ninja sound effects there,
I don't
Chad.
think. Yeah, thank you. No, we're looking forward to a bowl game. I think it's pretty certain that we're independent, so we don't have any tie-ins. So there's a little bit of concern there, but we have a great relationship with ESPN. And that's kind of what I wanted to mention was not playing that game, the silver linings I mentioned. We were able to set up BYU. You know, we had all the reservations, all the logistics worked out. They're actually staying in the same hotel. All of that's been worked out for BYU. We were in constant communication with Coastal Carolina all week. So they were able to kind of, we gave them the opportunity to still host game day. Had we brought this on them like, Florida State did on a Friday afternoon, they wouldn't be able to host game day. It would have been shut down for everybody. So doing that for our good friends at Coastal and helping BYU get this game. And then also we helped ESPN a ton by being able to have a game day and schedule it out. So I really think that with the bowl game tie into ESPN and all of those things that our athletic director was able to do kind of set us up with some good relationships. And I thought we had especially the athletic director and Hugh Freeze displayed a ton of sportsmanship. They were disappointed, but they were kind of excited to see BYU and Coastal still get to play a game this Saturday and have game day down there. And honestly, it's two unbeaten teams. It's a huge game. So the college football world in general is getting a great game, and they're getting even probably, I wouldn't say a better game because of my ties with Liberty, but they're getting a really high caliber game down there in Conway. And I'm sure that game day is very thankful for Liberty being so upfront with it early on and kind of saying, hey, this is a possibility. You guys might want to start looking elsewhere. So I think that that's all kind of worked out in our favor. And we really need all that positive momentum we can get with building relationships, not being in a conference. Anytime we can help another school like that, it just, for scheduling down the road, it really helps us out too. So it was good to see that sportsmanship and kind of put our brand, because it is different over at Liberty. It does mean more there, and it was a religious-based school. So it is kind of important that the nation sees that about us as well, and not just our good football team, but the great sportsmanship that we displayed and by our administration this week. So I think all in all, it's a good thing.
Good deal.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. The one thing I was going to ask when you were mentioning about bowl games, a lot of things start slipping. Now, in a typical year, bowl representatives start showing up at your home games and word starts spreading during the game and after the game of what all bowl reps showed up to your contest that day. But, in 2020, it's a little different. What are you hearing about the bowl scene for Liberty?
Yeah, so we have 6 or 8 tie-ins where we're not directly tied in with ESPN, but we're kind of a reserve if the certain conference is not able to put a bowl eligible team in there. We have the right to those games. I think that's where we'll end up in one of those games. I think, like I was mentioning, like how we helped ESPN and kind of had all that early discussion, I think ESPN is going to take care of us and get us in one of those. That's just my feeling. I haven't heard anything specific about that, but just kind of seeing how it's all played out, I really think that this team and this athletic director expects to be in a bowl game. What tier bowl, I'm not so sure yet. Had we played Coastal and won that game, you're a 10-win team, top 25 in the country. We're looking at a pretty good bowl. With this happening, I'm not so sure where it'll be, but I do think we'll be in a bowl game.
Can you drop any names
for what?
Bowls?
Which bowls? I mean, there's the Boca Raton Bowl and Myrtle Beach Bowl are two that I'm looking at. But there's six bowls that we're tied in with ESPN with. I think it'll end up being one of those.
Gotcha.
Well, Chad, I hate to ask this, but are you hearing anything about Hugh Freeze to elsewhere, or if that kind of died down for you guys because of Southern Miss, hiring their coach?
Yeah, so Southern Miss was kind of so at the beginning of the season, we were hearing when you'd ask Coach Freeze those questions, you guys even asked him, and the answer he gave you guys was, it's a little too early for that, or, I'm happy right here kind of thing. And let's talk about that later. As we got later in the season, we started hearing him say things like, I love Liberty. My family loves it here, those types of things. And then recently, his most recent answer has been, it's going to take a real special place for me to leave here. I mean, he's top. We're in the top 25 right now. He's recruiting well. Our facilities are well. He's getting paid well. His family loves it up there. So, no, nothing. South Carolina job opening kind of had us concerned for a little bit. I think it's my personal opinion. I think it's going to take something where he has the chance to win a national championship, in the first several years. So I don't think that South Carolina is that place. It could be, but as far as rumors, it's an honor to have if you're a G5, it's an honor to have your coach talked about in those Power 5 programs. And it's kind of like we're enjoying it while we have it. Here we are dancing with the prettiest girl in the room. And we know this dance isn't going to last forever, but we are enjoying it right now. And so it's great to have him talked about whenever Tennessee or Auburn, any of those coaching vacancies that might come up, Hugh Freeze is always in the top, and that's a good thing for our school. And I know we would hate to lose him, but it is a good thing because it means a lot of positive momentum behind that.
And Chad,
oh, go on, Stephen.
okay, being a fan of Liberty, I asked Coach Freeze about this before, but I'd like to get your perspective too. Do you like being an independent, or would you like to join a conference? And if so, which one do you think would fit Liberty the best?
Yeah, that's a great question. We talk about this all the time. Right now, it's pretty lonely. We're sitting here with no conference championship, nothing to play for really, and so at this time of the year, it's kind of a little odd. We've switched over to following basketball. We're in the ASUN for basketball, so right now it's kind of not great not being in a conference. But all the other aspects of being independent, our scheduling flexibility. The coach has the ability to come in and say, yeah, we want to play this team. No, they're going to be great next year. Let's not play them, that type of thing. So you can get as many wins or as many tough competition games as you want as a scheduler. The other thing about being independent is we're a national kind of brand, Liberty has been. So, I would say right now, I wish we were in a conference, and I think the American Athletic Conference makes most sense. I know there's some great teams there. I think as far as our facility, so our athletic director is on record as saying that one of the reasons we haven't been found the right fit for a conference is our facilities and athletic budget and those types of things are kind of would be at the high end of a Sun Belt. And you really don't want to invite somebody and say, hey, come on into the party, join the conference, and have them come in immediately at the top with budget and things like that. So I think that's been a big hang up, but I'm excited. I think we can do it as an independent. Do I think we can ever, have sustainability and be a top 15 team in the country as an independent? I doubt it. BYU's been pretty special at that. I think it's going to take us getting into a conference eventually. But right now, we're definitely making it work and trying to find all the positives, except for this, the preseason all-conference team and then playing for conference championships. Those are the types of things I miss as being a part of a conference. But you can see what it did for us this year. We were able to get games that we can win, and we're here sitting with 9 wins and ranked top 25. So it's working out for now. Long term, I'd like to see the American as a fan.
Chad, there's an old saying for athletic directors that they've always got a short list that they keep on them, just in case if your coach gets hit by a bus.
Oh, yeah.
So with that being said, and all the rumors going around with Hugh Freeze, do you have any idea who could be on that short list if Hugh Freeze decided to go elsewhere?
Yeah, our athletic director has said the same thing. He keeps a list of 5 names that he could call if our coach gets hit by a bus per se. And, I think it's going to be somebody that has head coaching experience. I know that that's one of the criteria that our athletic director likes is head coaching experience. And you look around at, the G5 level, even some, no, I really don't. Last year I had a better list. I had Neil Brown at Troy, if that would have, but he ended up going to WVU. There were some guys. This year I haven't really looked too far into it. Honestly, to be honest with both of you guys, I think we have Hugh Freeze at least another year. I think that he's not done building there yet. I don't think the job's coming open that he really wants. And I think we have him for another year. So as long as I'm glad I don't have to keep that list, but I will start making a list whenever the time comes, I'm sure.
I'm going extreme on this one, Chad. If Auburn loses out, Hugh Freeze is going to Auburn.
Yeah, it's that would be one of those special places that you can win a national championship in 2 to 3 years, like I was saying. And good friends with Gus. He's good friends with Gus down there, so he would know the program immediately. I think it's a great fit. You guys know you're Mr. SEC. You know that Hugh Freeze loves the SEC. He records the games, watches SEC games every night. He's from that part of every Saturday. He's going home and watching SEC games. So it would not surprise me at all to see Hugh back in the SEC. And to be honest with both of you, if it happens next year and it's at South Carolina, I'm going to be a big South Carolina fan. What Hugh has done for Liberty, and I'm just a big Hugh Freeze fan. And I hope that he stays at Liberty. But like I said earlier, right now, guys, we are dancing with the prettiest girl in the room, and we're enjoying it. And as soon as she walks away and goes find somebody else, well, we'll look back and have some great stories to tell and some good memories looking back and saying, wow, what a 2-year run you had at Liberty, or 3-year, or whatever it may be. So, yeah, I definitely, if Auburn opens up, I'll start making a list for sure.
Well, man, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully the Flames will get a really good, bowl selection. But Chad, real quick, for our viewers and followers, tell them how they can find you on social media.
Yeah, the simplest way is seaofred.com. That's with an A and then seaofred.com. Just go there, or on Twitter, same thing, a Sea of Red, and you'll be able to find my stuff there as well. So thank you guys very much. It's been an honor following y'all's show this year and watching y'all grow, and kind of seeing what you're doing for the game of college football and all this. So great stuff. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And if we don't talk to you again, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you too. I like the sweater.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, that's what we got out of the Liberty situation, and that really does stink that they're not going to be able to play this weekend.
Yeah, especially with College Game Day coming around. And
yes.
Anytime College Game Day comes to your campus, I don't care if you're USC, Alabama, Texas. It's a big deal when College Game Day comes to town.
Yeah.
And so, but for College Game Day to come to, to cover a Liberty game, to cover the Flames, that's monumental. That's massive. So it's sad. It's sad that we couldn't see it. We talked about this on the show earlier this year, that 2020 has brought some bad stuff, but 2020 has also brought some tremendous and great things. This college football season, Liberty's one of the main great things of the 2020 college football season.
Yes.
So, but for College Game Day not to cover that game with Coastal, the Chanticleers.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a little sad because I would have watched that College Game Day to see Liberty and Coastal Carolina, and just the fun what is. So anytime a team on the smaller stage gets to compete on the big stage and gets the big spotlight for a weekend, props to them for that.
And I want to give a shout out to this guy right here. He is actually a swim coach at the University of Alabama.
All right.
And he actually taught me math during my time in middle school. So he was always a really awesome math teacher. So I just wanted to give you a shout out and let you know that we're going to be watching the swim team this year.
Hey, Steven, what kind of swimmer are you?
I don't know. I'm more of a power walker rather than a swimmer.
I hear you. Yeah, I had you picked for the butterfly, Steven.
Yes. So, well, man, are you ready to review some of the top plays from this past weekend?
Absolutely.
And I got to be honest with you, I'm going to play this one first, just simply because I think that this one is the catch of the year. One arm on the shoulder pad. Check this out again when they zoom in. And I got to tell you, that was actually a pretty decent game. It went down to the wire between Boston College and Louisville. But look right there, man. Would you not call that catch of the year material? Watch this.
It's up there.
That's insane.
Yeah, I'm going to age myself, Steven. That's where we held our boombox. You know how he holds on the football? That's how we held our boombox back in the day.
Yes.
Wow, look at that.
Man, I tell you what, he has great ball control skills right there as well.
That is amazing.
And Boston College, they're a sneaky, good little football team there in the ACC.
BC has had a fun little season, so I'm looking forward to seeing if they can improve on that.
Yes. And here is the second one that comes to us from the Notre Dame, North Carolina game last Friday. And you actually text me about this call. That was an amazing catch for number 0, and that was his first catch of the season for a touchdown. His first touchdown of the season.
Hey, Mac Brown, start throwing it to him.
Yes. I mean, look at this right here. Over the defender, in the belly, and he comes down the hold zone.
Yeah, that full extension there was quite impressive. You know, his feet and toes are outstretching his fingers, arms and fingers. So, I mean, that's just amazing that he was able to pull that off. But I did not know that was his first catch of the year. That shocks me a little bit.
First touchdown of the year.
Wow. You got to start throwing it to that guy more.
All right, and then, of course, this one is from your Bulldogs. And, man, I'm going to tell you what, he took a lick but held on to the football.
When I was watching this game at a wedding during the service.
Watch this. Boom!
When that happened, when that ball was released, I was like, oh, man, he left his receiver out there. He's about to get knocked out. And so I saw the hit coming even before I saw the defender enter the picture. And then lo and behold, when he held on to it, I was just blown away. You know, big things are going to be happening at Mississippi State. That was a freshman to freshman connection,
yes,
freshman quarterback to a freshman receiver. There's nothing but big things on the horizon for the air raid there in Starkville. You know, there was a crazy stat that of the 22 players that started on offense and defense that won the game for Mississippi State at LSU, I believe they only have 9 of the starters on both sides of the ball.
Right.
Still starting for them. So that was a crazy stat. But you're seeing all these freshmen from Mississippi State starting to figure things out, and they're also now producing at a high level.
Well, let's go on ahead and bring on our second guest of the day. Well, it is always exciting when we get a big-time analyst, but also a big-time college football and former coach on the show. And as you can see back here, I am actually rocking the Georgia Tech shirt back there because we have a former Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket on the show today. And as you can see here, he was named the ACC Newcomer of the Year back in 1994. You've probably seen him on ESPN and ABC. He is the National Director of Recruiting. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very, very blessed to have Tom Luginbill join us here on the Stingray Show. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to y'all.
Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you so much. And
Yeah.
So can you kind of tell us a little bit about your playing days there at Georgia Tech?
Well, there was a lot of ups and downs, and I can tell you. So before we get to Georgia Tech, I kind of got to give you some background on how I got there. So I was a late bloomer football player. I was undersized, hadn't really come into my own. I played multiple positions in high school, so I really didn't get recruited. But I wanted to play quarterback, and I thought I had the talent to do it. And so I decided to go the junior college route just to prove myself. I was a good student. I was an academic qualifier. And fast forward 2 years into my junior college career, and our team was 21-1. We were undefeated my sophomore year. We won the junior college national championship. And next thing you know, I'm probably one of the most highly recruited kids at the junior college level back in 1993. And 2 years prior, had no recruiting action. And ended up going on to Georgia Tech. I was a mid-year enrollee. And what was kind of interesting is I went to Tech, and they had a returning starting quarterback already. So I knew going in there that I was going to have to beat somebody out who had already been playing. It had been the start of the year before. And God's honest truth, guys, we were terrible. I mean, we were a horrible football team. And at times, we were pretty decent. And we didn't have great team chemistry. And it was very frustrating. And it was a great learning experience for me, guys, because you go through a down year after you've had 2 years of great success, and you move all the way across the country from San Diego to Atlanta. Things aren't going well. You find out a lot about yourself. You find out a lot about your teammates. And then our coach ends up getting fired. And the season just rolls downhill. And then George O'Leary comes aboard, gets named the head coach. He was actually the defensive coordinator on that staff. And he just decides to make a shift in philosophy offensively. They're going to go more option-based. They wanted more of a dynamic athlete. And I had above average athleticism, but not running quarterback type of athleticism. So we parted ways. I ended up transferring to Eastern Kentucky, one of the premier FCS programs, played under Roy Kidd. My senior year, we had a lot of success, made it to the playoffs. And so I had a great 4-year run. I have a very interesting college experience because I played at 3 different levels of college. I've played at schools where you have no resources. I've played for a national championship. I've played for a 1-win team. I've played for a college FCS playoff team, teams with a bunch of resources, teams with no resources. You play on national television. You're flying to your games on an airplane. You go to an Eastern Kentucky, and you go to your road games on a bus. In fact, I remember right when I first got to Eastern, I'm like, hey, guys, where do we fly out of to go to our road games? And they're like, fly? We don't fly. We get on a bus. And I'm like, you get on a bus and drive all the way to Murray, Kentucky, or all the way to Cape Girardeau, Missouri? Yep. I'll tell you what, dudes, that was the best part of the experience. Because you talk about creating fantastic team camaraderie. And I've said this to many people. I've said it to my former teammates. I've said it in speaking engagements, and I've said it publicly. I had a great experience in 4 years of college. I never redshirted, I was eligible and started for every game that I could. Didn't miss a single game due to injury. And if I could, I would trade it all to be able to play 5 full years at Eastern Kentucky. That's how good of an experience I had. Best man in my wedding was my starting center. My son is named after him. 2 other guys who were in my wedding party that were former teammates. We all get together to this day. So again, it's all of those experiences. It's all of those team-oriented moments. And that's one of the things that irritates me right now about the climate we're in with all of these kids opting out. It's like, everybody's a team guy until the team becomes an inconvenience for you. And all of these guys that opt out because their team isn't doing well, why didn't you opt out before the season started? Things aren't going well now. All of a sudden you decide to opt out, and it just drives me nuts because you're never going to get those team moments back. Players will come and go, but teammates last for life.
Tom, we're almost a family-friendly show. Could you tell us one of the stories on the bus on one of those road trips that might have happened?
So, well, back in those days, it was great because you had, my senior year was the last year of athletic-only dorms where, the football players had their own dormitory, right, which is dangerous in many ways, but it's also the best way to do it because at least at those times a GA or one of those restricted earnings coaches lived in the dormitory with us. So it was easier for the coaches to keep tabs on all of us. And if we were going to get in trouble, we were all doing it one location. Nowadays, everybody's spread out. And so we played at Murray State. And it ended up being for the Ohio Valley Conference Championship. We lose by a touchdown. And during that game, I get knocked out of bounds on a late hit. And this was old school AstroTurf now. This wasn't field turf, right? Yeah. And I get hit, and I go sliding into what was the pole vault pit, that metal deal where you stick the pole in, and it's laying there on the ground. It's not covered up or anything. And I roll right into it, and I click my wrist like this, and I flip over, and my helmet comes down on my nose. All right, so now I've got this, what looks like somebody took a sand wedge right out of my forearm of a divot of nothing but gooey remnants of old school AstroTurf. All right. My nose is bleeding like crazy, and my left wrist just won't work. So game's over. We lose by a touchdown. I walk out of there. They put a tampon in my nose because they can't get it to stop bleeding. All right. So I have this tampon and this little string that they ended up cutting. Then I've got my arm wrapped up like a mummy because of the divot in the side of my forearm, and my hand is soft casted. And me and my teammates, we're walking to the bus, and we're all dejected. Some of our loyal fans and boosters walk up, and they're like, guys, we probably think you could use this for the bus ride home. And they hand us 2 32-ounce, 42-ounce, full to the top. Let's just say in Kentucky, what's the drink of choice?
Well,
bourbon.
I was going to say Kentucky bourbon.
Bourbon. So we get on that bus, and let's just say that that bourbon cured a lot of woes for that 6-hour bus ride back to Richmond, Kentucky. I'll give you another great one too. So Roy Kidd, who was a legendary coach. At the time I played for him, he was the 5th all-time winningest coach in the history of college football, regardless of division. In fact, he was so successful, he was still coaching when the stadium was named after him.
Wow.
So he would take the field in his own stadium. And so the locker room one time, and Coach Kidd was a short guy, and when he'd get upset, he'd get a real high-pitched voice. And during the season, we're playing a non-conference team, and we're just way better than they are, and we're goofing around. We come in the locker room, and it was one of those deals where you're not respecting your opponent. We come into the locker room, and the way the locker room was set up is the defense went over to one side, the offense went to the other side. Coach Kidd was an offensive guy, and he had this defensive coordinator by the name of Jack Eisen. Now, Coach Kidd had been there at this time for 32 years, and Coach Eisen had been with him for 29. So, I mean, they were joined at the hip. So we're getting a tongue lashing, man. And you know the big 55-gallon drum trash cans that you see everywhere? You know, they're all big gray, charcoal gray things. We got one of those in our locker room, and it's over in the corner. And Coach Kidd hauls off and kicks this trash can as hard as he can. And you know when an infant falls and you hear that gasp of silence before the yell of the scream? That's what Coach Kidd did. So all of a sudden it's, oh, and he goes, oh, and he grabs his foot and he's jumping up and down, and we can't figure out why he's doing this. And he's screaming, Jack, I broke my foot. Come in and say something to him. And he's hopping around the locker room holding one foot. He's 65 years old. What we come to find out is that so nobody would steal or move the trash can, it was full of cement for the first 6 or 7 inches. So he kicks it. He basically kicks the cement. And we're all sitting there on one knee like this, just dying, rocking back and forth, trying not to laugh. He was a beauty. And so going back to that trip, coming back from Murray State, the next day we're in our team meeting getting ready for the next week. And he comes into and he's ripping us. He comes into the meeting. He goes, look at that quarterback. Looks like he was in a goddamn car wreck. Look at him. Just look at him. I'm all bundled up. I look like a mummy. I'm all mangled. And then I come to find out that I finally go get an x-ray. So 2 nights later, I end up getting an infection in my arm. I get staph where the particles of the turf are in my arm. So I have 103 fever. My wrist is blown up like this. They finally get the wrist to go down, get the infection under control. Now I can't move my wrist. It's a Wednesday before our next game. They take an x-ray. Sure enough, I break my wrist. Didn't even know it for 3 days. They put me in a soft cast. I played the final 5 games with it on my left hand. And let me tell you something. In those days, you didn't get to play in the shotgun.
Right.
All right. Now everybody's in the shotgun. So try taking a snap with a broken wrist. I can assure you, it is not a warm and fuzzy feeling.
Tom, please tell me that one day before we all pass off this earth and your teammates, that y'all reenact that for Halloween. Everyone comes back. That would be a great picture for social media.
Oh my God.
The arm.
Well, if you remember, that and the coach kicking the trash can on our college football 150. They had us all as analysts kind of give a story. That's the story I told, was Coach kicking the can. I remember also, too, being a little kid, my dad was a defensive coordinator at Arizona State, and they're playing the 1983 Fiesta Bowl. And I'm a little kid, so I'm running around the field the whole time and having a big old time. And this was the old days now, right? So I'm walking on the Oklahoma sideline, and I look down the sideline, and I'm looking, and, there's Barry Switzer. And even I, at that age, I realized, oh, that's Barry Switzer. He's smoking a cigarette while he's coaching the game. How great is that? It's just old school stuff, man.
Yeah. Hey, and speaking of that, when you were a kid and your dad was coaching, who were a couple of guys that you just really looked up to as a kid, players and coaches?
Well, I got to tell you, man, growing up a coach's kid is a special thing, because you get to do things that other kids don't get to do and would dream of doing. And so you're always around the program. You're always in the locker room. You're running through the coaches' offices. Back in those days, it was chalkboards, and then it merged into grease boards. And, it's funny because as a coach's kid, what do? You go into all the offices and you draw on the boards and the whole 9 yards. Well, they started having grease boards. You guys may not know this trick. It's a good little remedy. And so what would us as kids do? We'd go pick up any marker and we'd draw on the board, right?
Right.
So next thing you know, you pick up a Sharpie and you ruin the board. Do you want to know what will take a Sharpie off of a grease board?
What?
An actual grease board pen. If Sharpie's on the board, take a grease board pen and scribble over it, and it removes the Sharpie off of the board. That's a coach's trick. That's a coach's trick with the little kids. So yeah, so you're growing up and you're at practice and you're running around in pregame warm up with the mascot and the whole 9 yards. But I think the thing that I take away the most was when I got old enough and I was actually a high school player. And the thing that was great about my dad is he never forced the game on me. He said, hey, you want to come to work with me and hang out, sit in the coaches' meetings, go out and make some throws with the quarterbacks? Come on. If you want to go play the flute, go play the flute. If you want to go play the drums, I don't care. I just want you to be happy. And I think that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with the game is because I didn't feel like I had to love the game. It wasn't forced on me.
Right.
So what I used to do is my dad would bring me in during training camp. And in those days, all the freshmen that would come in, they had practice for 3 to 4 days before the vets would show up. So I'd go and I would throw in training camp. So you generally bring in 1 or 2 freshman quarterbacks, and I'd go throw all the drills with them. So it was a great opportunity for me to get better. I'm throwing with all of these older guys. And so I remember those moments vividly. And then what I would try to do, just kind of be a little bit of a sponge, is I would hop around into the various coaches' meetings and the player meetings, and I would just sit in there and listen. So I remember back in 1990, this would have been 1992, I was a senior in high school, or getting ready to be a senior in high school, and it was Marshall Falk's, would have been his sophomore year. And so I'm like, all right, well, I've been going to practice. I'm going to go sit in on the running backs meetings. And at that time at San Diego State, the running backs coach was Sean Payton. So here I am as a kid in the running backs meetings, and the guy running the meeting is Sean Payton, and the running back leading the group of running backs is Marshall Falk. So, those types of experiences are unique, and it's a lot of fun. And you look back and you see all these coaches and these people emerge and go on to, have great careers. And, it's a blessed upbringing, and it's unique. Now, it's not easy all the time to be a coach's kid, because all the public scrutiny, it becomes very, very public. And, now that I'm in the realm that I'm in now, it's really no different as a broadcaster. There's always going to be somebody that doesn't like what you say. You're never going to please everybody. And they always tell you, oh, you hate our team. And my answer to that is I hate every team. I'm biased against everybody. I can assure you that no matter what I say, if some fan base doesn't like it, I'm biased against them. So don't worry, I'm an equal opportunity hater.
That's great. Hey, but when you run into those old guys like Marshall Falk and the other guys that your dad coach, what do they say to you these days?
Well, first of all, my dad's nickname as a coach was always Coach Lug or Coach Loogie. So naturally, I was Little Loogie.
Right.
And that's all the players ever knew me as. So whether it was at Arizona State when I was real, real little, or when it was at San Diego State when I was really my sophomore, junior, and senior year, and freshman year in junior college, I was still a Little Loogie, but I was more of a teenager then, so I was the age gap had closed. It wasn't like when my dad had David Fulcher at Arizona State, who ended up being an all-pro safety for a number of years for the Bengals, and I was 6. That's different. I remember those times, but so I was always Little Loogie running around, and even to this day, I'll tell you a great story. My dad, and you guys may not remember this. Remember when they used to have all of the college all-star games? They had the Hula Bowl, and they had the Japan Bowl. So one year at the Japan Bowl, my dad was the head coach for the West, and Steve Spurrier was the head coach of the East. And, the Japan Bowl was really, really expensive, and just to have a meal. So the Japan Bowl didn't last very long. And that year was a great year. Mark Brunell was the quarterback for one team. John Lynch was the safety for the other team. And there's a bunch of great players in that deal. So several years later, I'm broadcasting. I've got a South Carolina game. And I hadn't seen Coach Spurrier in a number of years. And we walk into his office to have our coaches meetings with him on the Friday before the game. Spurrier gets up out of his desk, goes, "Well, how you doing, Loogie?" And that's what he calls me. I said, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" He goes, "Remember me and your daddy went to the Japan Bowl?" I said, "Yep, Coach, I remember that vividly. We kind of started about pairs." He goes, "Yep, we put the Japan Bowl under. We put them out of business." So the next year, and he was right, the next year the Japan Bowl went away. So the reason why I bring up that Lugie thing and how, if Marshall Falk, if I talk to a Marshall Falk, talk to those guys, I'm still that. But even to my dad's coaching peers, you can go back over the last 7-8 years, and anytime I've ever had to do an interview with Steve Spurrier on live TV, he will address me as Lugie.
Wow.
So I'll ask about your question. Coach, you guys really struggled to run the football in the first half. How are you going to remedy that coming out of here in the third quarter? Well, Lugie, that's how he starts off everything.
Hey, you're a West Coast kid growing up in San Diego. I spent some time in San Diego myself. Hey, who's your favorite 3 Padres of all time not named Tony Gwynn?
Sandy Alomar Jr., Steve Garvey, and Goose Gossage.
Oh,
and I'm going to tell you right now how proud I am of myself of even being able to do that, because baseball is literally my least favorite sport. But when you're in San Diego, and the Padres and Tony Gwynn and all, really, it was just, there was no MLS back then. There were the Chargers, the Aztecs, and the Padres. And so, but I know enough to know the big names. I know. So I actually am very surprised I came up with 3. And I might have said Alberto Alomar, Sandy Alomar. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I can't remember. I know Garvey and Goose Gossett, because Goose had the sweet handlebar, back in the day. And that was when the Padres, that was right when they transitioned from their brown and yellow uniforms to their navy and orange, and now they're back to the brown and yellow.
Yep, brown is back. That's right.
That's right.
Hey, everyone, when they get to San Diego, like me, everyone runs down to Tijuana. Do you have a Tijuana story that you can share on this almost family-friendly show?
I tell you, I don't, and I'll tell you why. And I'm glad, because I know of a few horror stories that included, parents losing a child, something just dangerous, and usually on a return from it, and I was always kind of scared off by it. I never really had any interest. I knew it was dangerous. I think I had enough sense. I was one of those kids that wasn't a follower, and I just kind of did my own thing. And if I kind of sensed that, this might not be a good idea, I always trusted that. And I got to tell you, I'm 46 years old, and to this day, I have never been to Tijuana. I've been to a variety of places in Mexico, but Tijuana, man, Tijuana is dangerous. I don't know how many people want to spend a lot of time there.
Well, let's go back to college football just for a second, Tom. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is a big topic. What are your thoughts about Sarah Fuller and her becoming the first female kicker last week for a Power 5 school?
Well, I think, number one, forget about actually getting on the field and kicking, and think about this from a locker room, organized team activity standpoint. You're the black sheep, not on purpose, not because anybody's making you out to be, but think about it. You're not in the same locker room. You have to have your own set of facilities. We're in the era of COVID, so you're really secluded from others. I think that makes the story even more magnificent, because you're trying so hard to be a part of this team. And from a gender perspective, it's hard to do that, right? It's hard to do that, share a locker room and to share a training room, and the types of situations that you're in. You've got to overcome that just to gain the trust of your teammates and get on the field and perform a task. I think the one thing that we were all disappointed in last week is that Vanderbilt is so poor right now as a football team that they couldn't even put her in a position to have an opportunity to attempt not just a field goal, but an extra point. And I think we're all kind of looking forward to seeing that. But I obviously there are challenges on the field once you get on the field, but it's also a unique set of circumstances to be ingrained as a teammate, all right, when it's not as easy it is for the rest of us.
Tom, we're coming up on signing day. Is there any fun stories that you've heard, or one that you had yourself of a crazy recruiting story that led to a fun signing day?
Well, I remember a story in my first, this will be our 15th year covering it, and then obviously broadcasting our signing day coverage, but in player evaluation and scouting. And the good thing about my job, and I'm going to take a long way to get to the answer to this. The good thing about my job is I rarely have to do anything where I'm interviewing kids. We're not in the rumor mill circuit. I'm not calling kids saying, "Hey, have you narrowed your choices down to the top 5?" I don't care about any of that stuff. We're on the scouting side of it, where we want to find out. We want to detail the strengths and weaknesses, and the areas of improvement and how a guy projects to the next level. But one of the great stories, and I don't know if I've ever heard anything top this, is, and I'll leave the school and the player's name out of it. But there was a high-profile player on the West Coast in the state of California, and a coach from one of the more prominent Southern California schools, you can do the math, is recruiting this guy. And it's close. It's coming down to the wire. And the coach has this kid on the phone, and he says, "Hey, listen, man, you come here. You have no idea the level of celebrity and fame that goes with coming here. You come here, you'll meet Michael Jackson." And the kid says to the coach, he goes, "Coach, isn't Michael Jackson dead?" And the coach goes, "Well, hell, you'll meet Tito." The coach is dead serious. It just goes to show you, man. And when it gets to the 12th hour, man, these coaches get desperate. They're going to throw any line out there they can to see if it works.
Tell me where to sign for Tito Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get to meet Tito.
No, not Jermaine. I want to meet Tito.
Yeah, Tito. Exactly.
Well, what are your thoughts about this Michigan program, and how bad are they right now? And do you think that they will make a coaching change hire this year?
It's so interesting you asked me that question today of all days, because we hit on this on College Football Live this week, and I've had very strong comments about this because I've already seen it happen with the Nebraska program. And I think what we've got to realize is that in today's climate, this isn't 30, 35 years ago. Brand isn't enough. The maize and blue, the winged helmet, it's not enough. And the reason why it's not enough is because kids in this day and age, they don't care about tradition. They don't care about what you've done in the past. Kids are attracted to what's happening now. They respond to what are you now? Why do you think Clemson is so prominent? It's because those kids, when they were in 7th or 8th grade, was when they started to experience this Clemson run, right? Same thing with Ohio State, same thing with Alabama. And what I'm trying to get people to acknowledge, at least consider, is that maybe we're in an era where we're expecting too much of Michigan, where, let's just say this, if they're not at the level of Ohio State, which they're not, if they're not going to have the roster that Ohio State has, which they don't, literally right now, that's at least one loss. We've seen them dip down and struggle with the likes of a Northwestern, a Michigan State, a Wisconsin, or a Penn State. So let's just say out of that group, you're at risk of losing 2 games a year. That puts you at 9-3 right there. Not only are you not in the Big Ten championship, you're not even in the conversation for the college football playoff. So why do we keep seeming to expect this team to be 11-1, 12-0, when that's not what they're capable of right now? And I said on College Football Live this week, I said, and this isn't a knock on Michigan, but in recruiting right now, as far as the best players out there, it's all about perception. How does the player perceive your program? And if you're not perceived the way Clemson and Alabama and Florida and and Ohio State and Texas A&M right now, Oklahoma right now, then you've got a significant uphill battle to climb. You're dealing with weather issues. They haven't necessarily kept up in the arms race. Stadium, unreal. Enhancements there, unreal. But as far as football operations complex, maybe not what other places are. And, my argument would be is I don't know if it matters whether it's Jim Harbaugh or anybody else. I think this is what Michigan is right now. I look at, if you hired Urban Meyer, which you would never do it because he's an Ohio State guy,
right,
or a Nick Saban, that's your only way out of this, because the perception of those two people right now would carry a lot of weight in terms of kids wanting to go to Michigan. I think kids want to go other places. They might be considering Michigan, and I know that's a harsh reality, but the place we're in right now, I think, bores that out. They are at best a 9 or 10 win team. I think that should be our expectation level. It's not 30 years ago. Branding's not enough. And so we over expect from them right now when we shouldn't, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. You know, what are some teams, some dark horse teams that are on the outside looking in that has a legit chance of making a New Year's Six bowl this year?
Well, New Year's Six, without question, and I actually think this team, if things were to fall their way, and I'll lay out a scenario for you here, is Texas A&M has made huge strides. Now, you know, let's look at this for a second. If let's just say Ohio State only gets 5 or 6 games in, all right?
Right.
So, and they're undefeated, but they don't make the Big Ten championship game, all right? What if Notre Dame beats Clemson twice? So Clemson's out. That would make only one ACC team eligible. Florida beats Alabama in the SEC title game. Now you've got a 1-loss A&M, a 1-loss Florida, a 1-loss Alabama, and an undefeated Notre Dame. For Texas A&M, not only are they looking at a strong New Year's Six bowl, they could find themselves in the college football playoff mix, and the committee already likes them. Look at where they've placed them right now. Not that much has to happen for that to be a reality. So I think they're a team that has a great opportunity. I'm really interested to see what happens with BYU and Coastal Carolina this week. I think it's going to be a great matchup that came out of nowhere. I've had BYU. They are so underrated. I know the schedule's not great. That quarterback's going to be a top 10 overall pick. He's that good. If you haven't seen him, you need to see Zach Wilson. So I'm interested to see what the committee does as far as New Year's Six as it relates to both Cincinnati and BYU. Could we see both of them? Because keep in mind, BYU is not considered group of 5. They're considered non-Power 5 independent. So the rule for the committee doesn't apply to BYU. It would only apply to Cincinnati or potentially Tulsa, who are going to play in the following week. So very interested to see as dark horses where Cincinnati and BYU fall. The team that's playing the best football right now but got themselves out of it in the first 3 weeks is Oklahoma. And it's not because of their offense. It's because, shockingly, it's because of their defense. The problem is that they've got 2 losses, but they're one of the hottest teams in America right now. So I think they're a team that could cause some real problems down the stretch. There's going to be a lot of I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are fighting and scrapping. You know, what happens in the Big Ten with the College Football Playoff Committee if the scenario I played out with Ohio State actually happens? And you've got 2 teams playing for the Big Ten championship, neither of which the committee would take, all right, because who do they want to take? They want to take Ohio State. Well, Ohio State only played 6 games and is undefeated. Well, let's just reverse the ACC outcome I mentioned. What if Clemson does avenge the Notre Dame loss and you've got 2 1-loss teams out of the ACC? Would the committee take a 6-0 Ohio State team versus an 11-1 Clemson? I would hope not. I mean, I don't. You didn't play in your Big Ten championship game. You have far fewer data points, and everybody says, well, you know, the more you go out there and play, the more opportunities you have to win games. That's true. But the more you go out there and play, the more opportunities you have to lose games too.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you mentioned Oklahoma. Shane Beamer, there on that staff. Shane was in Starkville when I was a very young reporter. Matter of fact, his now wife, she actually worked at the television station with me there in Starkville. Shane's name's getting thrown around a lot about jobs opening up. Have you heard anything on that, on the coaches front, on the coaching carousel with Shane Beamer?
I've just heard, I think a lot of what everybody else has heard, and it's swirling around the South Carolina program, you know, and, you know, it's interesting because you're talking about a guy that's been a position coach or a special teams coordinator. He hasn't been an offensive defensive coordinator, hasn't been an assistant head coach. Not that you have to be. So it does surprise. The thing about it is he's generally known as an all-around really good guy, which he is. And I've gotten to know him over the years as well. You know, Jim Donnan, the former Georgia and Marshall head coach, made a statement to me one time, not necessarily in reference to this, but we were talking about coaching hires, and he said, you know, one of the things I always look at, he said, is if we're considering hiring somebody, would our biggest in-state rival hire that guy for the same position? That's a great question to be asked. If you know, you're in a position, and let's just say, you know, Clemson's not the team they are right now, but Clemson is a fledgling 7-5, 6-6, or 4-8 team year in and year out. You're looking to make a change. Right. You know, Would Clemson hire him as the head coach? As we're talking about Shane Beamer with South Carolina, I think it's a fair question. I just think it's a great point Coach Dunn made to me about any coaching hire. It makes you kind of sit back and think, that's true. Would they do that? And the answer to that question could have an impact on what a university does.
Well, I have two final questions. Getting back to the 14 playoff, do you kind of feel like that the Pac-12 is out now that Oregon got beat last week?
Yeah, I think the Pac-12 is done. I think they might have been done even if Oregon had finished undefeated based on the rest of the landscape of college football, specifically because, remember, Notre Dame was not the hot team they are now when the Big Ten and the Pac-12 decided to start their season. So Notre Dame's completely changed the landscape, not only with that win versus Clemson, but how they've played in successive weeks since then. So they have really upped their perception in the eyes of the committee, which means that the Pac-12 would have had to even climb a steeper hill. So I think they're done. I think the Big 12 is out, but not out of a New Year's Six necessarily. I really like whether it's going to be in Oklahoma, whether it's going to be in Iowa State, although Iowa State's got a really tough a tough one this week versus West Virginia. I saw West Virginia earlier, really good on defense. I think you're looking at, as I mentioned, a potential 3-team SEC if the cards were to fall right with 1 ACC, or you're looking at 2 ACC with Clemson having avenged the Notre Dame loss and having probably some form of Florida and Alabama. Now, here, if Florida loses to Alabama, that's Ohio. That's what Ohio State needs.
Yeah,
Ohio State needs that big time. Now, maybe Ohio State will get enough games in, and maybe they will be able to play in the Big Ten championship. But I said the moment they announced that they were playing, and I said this on live TV, and I believe it to this day, there was no way with the parameters that they set forth that the Big Ten was going to be able to pull this off. No reset dates, no postponements, and a 21-day quarantine where everybody else only had a 14-day quarantine. That was ludicrous. And here we sit trying to figure out if their best team could even get into the conference championship game as a result of those protocols.
And my last question for you is, this weekend you're calling the Tulsa Navy game. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of break that down for us a little bit?
Well, we talk about cancellations and postponements. This is literally the 4th time our crew has been assigned a Tulsa game. And this will only be the 2nd time we've actually seen them. And it was a shame, too, because our first one was Tulsa-Cincinnati, which is being replayed next week and is probably going to be in ABC primetime because the schedule is shaking out that it might be the best game of the day.
Right.
So the other interesting thing about this COVID world we're living in is we had Navy and SMU, and then I had Tulsa and SMU back-to-back weeks, 4 weeks ago. Since those 2 games were played, both Navy and Tulsa have only played one other game. So they're just dealing with this, get ready, hurry up and wait, let down, games canceled. Looks like we're safe, looks like we're on. Tulsa is the most interesting team in college football because for some reason they go out and they goof around for the first quarter and a half and they look awful on offense. And then a switch flips and next thing you know, they are just out of sight. They did it versus UCF when they upset them. They did it versus East Carolina when they upset them. They did it versus Tulane. They did it versus SMU. I mean, it's been unbelievable to watch this team. If you're going to tune in and watch Tulsa, watch them from the 2nd quarter on. Now, defensively, I will say this. If you haven't seen or heard of Zavin Collins, number 23, he is a 6'4", 230-pound linebacker that even with all of Tulsa's cancellations has been the National Defensive Player of the Week 4 times. I mean, that's how dominant a player he is. He's the player to watch on defense for Tulsa. There you see him there on the intercept. Look at him. He's 6'4", 260. Look at him run. And so obviously with a defense like this from Tulsa, they are the best defense in the country in stopping people on 3rd down. They've created multiple turnovers. And with Navy, they're just really struggling with their triple option. They don't have a quarterback this year. And they've become so accustomed to having a great player with the likes of Keenan Reynolds and others that have really kind of dictated their success. And they've really struggled to find that rhythm at quarterback. There's 1 of 3 choices. We don't know who's going to start yet for Kendi and Montalolo. We're expecting to maybe see the true freshman in Xavier Arline. I don't know that for sure, but they've got to come up with an answer at quarterback, or it's going to be a long day for Navy on offense.
Mm-hmm. Tom, I got a couple of parting questions. I've been distracted this entire time that we've been talking of all the Superman memorabilia and garb you got behind you.
So I'm a huge. Can you guys see me if I turn around here?
Yeah.
So I'm a huge superhero guy, and I work out of my office. So my office is kind of decorated like I'm 12 years old, which I am. But I got all kinds of pictures. I got let's see. I got Tommy Maddox. I was his coach in the XFL in 2001, and he was the MVP of the league when we won the championship. And let's see, I got signed Joe Montana ball here, a signed Joe Montana Super Bowl rings there. There's a picture of me in junior college. I worked for the Cowboys for a couple of years. That's me and Jerry Jones right there. And then a lot of this stuff, like little trinkets and stuff like this, are all from my son. He grew up just loving superheroes. So I got all kinds of stuff from my coaching days to goof around stuff. I could probably walk you all around my office here, but you get the gist of it.
Hey, check this out real quick. I'm right there with you because I'm a huge Godzilla fan and kaiju. So I'm wearing a Godzilla sweater today.
There you go. There you go. In fact, that Godzilla looks like the UAB Blazer.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. The UAB Blazer or the Barcelona Dragons of the old NFL Europe.
I remember that. I remember. Hey, Tom, a fun question. Who was your favorite Superman, and who did you wish that would play Superman?
Okay, so number one, nobody will ever trump Christopher Reeve.
I agree.
You know, he defines the role at a time where you didn't have the special effects. You didn't. He personified it. I actually think that Henry Cavill is perfectly cast, and I liked Man of Steel, but they haven't created many opportunities for him to flourish. I think they've kind of diminished his role in the Justice League film, and I actually got to know Zack Snyder a little bit. I love him to death. He gave Dave Pash and myself an opportunity to be the broadcasters in Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice.
That's awesome.
So I got to be around the set and see that for a few days. It was total fun because I'm such and I'm not a comic book guy. I'm just a superhero and superhero movie guy. So I love Man of Steel. I think Henry Cavill's awesome. I have heard rumors that he signed on to do at least 3 more DC movies, which I think would be great. And then, of course, I work at ESPN. We're owned by Disney. Disney owns Marvel. So we have all kinds of really cool stuff. I got all kinds of Captain America stuff in here and stuff everywhere. But, I like them all, man. I think if you ask me, I'd be Superman 1, Batman 2, Captain America, and then probably Deadpool. Deadpool's been rising up the charts for me.
That's a solid lineup. That's a very
and it's funny because I saw Ryan Reynolds, who plays Deadpool. When Disney bought that property from Fox, it's Disney. It's not rated R superheroes. Right. And Ryan Reynolds posted a picture where he was in his Deadpool costume and he had his hands behind his back. And it was this security guard escorting him out of the Magic Kingdom. I mean, it was priceless because it's so true. But looks like they're getting ready to make Deadpool 3. That'll be under Disney's umbrella, and I think it's going to be rated R, so it should be pretty cool.
Well, this will be my last question. You've had so many great stories today. I'm gonna leave it multiple choice. I'm gonna give you the option. Either give us your best Jerry Jones story when you were with the Cowboys, or talk about coaching in Amsterdam.
So I'll go with Jerry Jones because this is something that people may not realize if you haven't worked in that building. So I worked in 2 different roles. I was in pro personnel with them in advanced scouting, and then I operated and ran his arena football team at the time in 2001 and 2002, the Dallas Desperados. So and so it was a great working experience for me. And here's the one thing that if you've ever worked for the Cowboys organization as an employee, doesn't matter what outsiders say, doesn't matter what you hear, as an employee, if you're a worker, he treats you like gold. And the thing that makes him unique is you might see him back in these days, their operation wasn't in Frisco, it was at the old Valley Ranch complex.
Right.
But you might see him in the hallway and he would stop and say, "Hey, Tom, how are you?" Call you by your first name, right? You might not see him for another 6 months. And when he'd see you, he'd call you by your first name.
Wow.
And he could do that with everybody. I'll tell you another great story. This is vintage Jerry Jones. I'm interviewing there, and he's got me in his office. And the way the office was set up, it's an L-shaped deal. And along the L shape behind you are the Super Bowl trophies. All right. And then, so we're sitting there, and he's on one side of the L shape, and I'm on the other side, and we're going over things, and we're basically going through an interview thing and kind of have a lull in the action. And across his office, I can see this easel standing up, and he's got these boards, but they're facing the other way.
Right.
And so I said to him, I said, "Hey, Mr. Jones," I said, "what do you got over there?" He goes, "That is the future of the Dallas Cowboys. The problem is I got to get somebody to pay for it." So he walks over to it, turns it around, and it's AT&T Stadium.
Wow.
This was 2001. And
wow.
When I tell you the renderings are exactly what you see right now, to a T. He had that thing mapped out. And the reason why it's where it's at is he couldn't get the city of Irving to pay for it. Because if you remember, Old Texas Stadium was right smack dab in Irving. We wanted to just put it in the same place, but he couldn't do it because Jerry wasn't going to pay for it out of his own pocket. He might pay for some of it, but he wasn't going to pay for all of it. But it was amazing. The vision that he had for that at that time, so far ahead of what anybody was ever imagining, and he had it all mapped out already. It was really cool.
Wow, that is impressive. Tom, this has been a huge pleasure. Please come back and join us. You've had some of the greatest stories. Matter of fact, this has been my favorite interview so far. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And Stephen, what's your last question for him?
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement. I'm going to pull you up full screen, and the floor is yours to plug anything you would like, tell people how they can find you, all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm not a huge self-promoter, guys, but I am on Instagram, Tom Luginbill. I am on Twitter at Tom Luginbill. Most of the stuff at the time I'm just doing goof around family stuff. I'm on Facebook. I pretty much friend anybody. I don't really care. I'm not all over that private about it. But you can find me each and every week on Thursdays on College Football Live on ESPN and ESPN2. Obviously, from a recruiting perspective, we'll be all over National Signing Day coming up on December 16th. And then each and every Saturday, because of COVID and the pandemic, no longer on the road. So we're calling college football games on ESPN and ESPN2. And we call it from a studio. So it's been a unique experience for all of us. And always appreciate everybody watching, even everybody that's not happy when you say something bad about their team. But no, it's been a pleasure, guys. I really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun with it. I hope you guys did too.
Yes, sir. I
Pleasure was
did.
all ours.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And hopefully we can do it again soon. And if we don't get to talk to you, we hope your family has a very Merry Christmas.
Same to you guys. Appreciate it.
Tom.
You betcha.
Thank you. Well, that was a really exciting interview, and we want to thank Tom for his time for out of this busy schedule today.
Yeah, I want to change my wish list, Stephen. I want to bring a campfire, some beverages, and Tom Luginbill stories on my wish list to Santa now.
Yes. And we are back on the Stingray show. How are you doing today, Heath? Because I tell you what, after watching that gets you excited for the big weekend this upcoming Saturday.
Yeah, some fun games happening this weekend. We've already mentioned about the BYU Coastal Carolina game. But, hopefully Tom's game doesn't get canceled.
Yes.
And looking forward to seeing actually any kind of football. I hate that Vanderbilt and Georgia canceled. I hate seeing any kind of game canceled. But
speaking of that, we actually had some breaking news that came out, and I actually texted you about it during the interview. Okay, so this comes from the SEC office, and this was reported by SECsports.com. The schedule now for December the 12th, which is next weekend, includes LSU at Florida, Auburn at Mississippi State, Georgia at Missouri, Ole Miss at A&M, Tennessee at Vandy, Alabama at Arkansas. Then here's where things get incredibly interesting. On the day of the SEC championship game, December 19th, you have Alabama, Florida, potentially. You also have A&M Tennessee, Ole Miss LSU, Missouri, Mississippi State, and Vandy, Georgia, along with the SEC championship game on that day.
That is a little crazy to think about. You know, Stephen, I've always had a crazy idea that the last two place teams should play at the old stadium in Birmingham where they originally played the SEC championship, and give a trophy to the loser of the last two place teams in the SEC, the bottom feeder in the West, the bottom feeder in the East, and make the captains of the football team, the head coach, the athletic director, and the school president accept the loser's trophy. I think that would make good television.
And the rescheduling of postponed games now provides the opportunity for each SEC school to play 10 games in 2020.
You know, the crazy thing is heaven forbid if one of those games gets postponed again, I bet, are we going to push it to Christmas?
No, I doubt that. No, I think it's over after that. All right, man. Well, let's go on ahead real quick and run through some of the games for this weekend. We have another big interview coming up here in just a little while, but I wanted to go on ahead real quick and do some of the picks before we get to it. So we start tonight, 7:30 on ESPN. It is 8-1 Louisiana, ranked 25th in the poll this week. 8-1 at App State, 7-2. This game is going to be a squeaky good little matchup. Now, App State is a 2.5-point favorite. However, the FPI likes App State as well at 56% chance to win. That is the Football Power Index. I'm actually going with the ranked team here. I'm going against Vegas and against the FPI. I'm going with the Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns.
You know, how many roads from Lafayette, Louisiana go to Boone, North Carolina?
I know.
Not many. No, I'm a big fan of Billy Napier's team. I'm a big fan of App State. This will be a fun game to watch. So
yes,
I will be catching in on this game, watching in on it. I look forward to it. I'm going to go with Billy Napier. I'm with you, Stephen. I like Billy Napier and the Raging Cajuns. They're on the road in Boone, North Carolina.
All right. Well, next up is going to be, now I've got a little interesting little side note here for you about this next game, because our friend of the show, Mr. College Football, actually put out an article earlier today that said that Texas A&M should be on upset alert at Auburn. Wow. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. Mr. College Football, who are we to second guess Mr. College Football?
Right.
You know, Tony has been excellent to the show. He's been on the show twice. You know, if you break that down, Stephen, he's been on 10% of our episodes.
Yes.
So, you know, think very highly of Tony Barnhart.
Yeah.
I always have. With this game, I want to go with the hot team. I'm saying was Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I like what Texas A&M does. We all know Bo Nix is a different quarterback at home. We all know this. I expect Bo Nix to play an excellent game tomorrow, but I got a feeling Kellen Mond, he's going to keep both teams in the game. We've talked about it more than once, but I think Kellen Mond makes one or two more extra plays, and especially that A&M defense, than the Auburn Tigers do.
Right. And by the way, now get this. Vegas likes A&M. The Football Power Index favors Auburn. That's insane.
That is a little insane. I'm still got Whoop. I'm going with the Aggies.
I agree, man. After all the way Auburn played against Alabama, I think that deflated them a little bit. I'm actually going with Gig'em in that one. All right, next up is going to be a game that we actually have a couple of our viewers on Facebook that was asking about this game. Tom Wingabumule, I hope I said that correctly. Hopefully I said that correctly, my friend. It is Arkansas 3-5 at Missouri 4-3. And I've got to be honest with you here, man. You know, with everything that has happened for Arkansas this year moving forward, and looking back over the season, I really feel like that. Don't call me crazy here, but I feel like that this is a must-win for Sammy Pittman in Arkansas to kind of give them a little bit of momentum moving forward towards the offseason, because the last few outings, they have not looked as good of a football team against, A&M and Florida. They just did not show up and play well in either of those games. So tomorrow, I think, is a really must-win for Arkansas to get positive momentum moving forward.
I break this down not on the offensive side of the ball. I break it down on the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
And who's got the better defensive coordinator? And we all know who that is. Barry Odom in Arkansas. Barry Odom alone has won Arkansas multiple games this year. With a true freshman quarterback at Missouri, I just think that's just, leading the sheep to the slaughter. I mean, I think that's taking the sheep to the wolf right there. So I really like Arkansas in this one, only because of the freshman quarterback and Barry Odom, the DC. But you know what, Stephen? Whoever wins this game, why don't we go on and give them the bonus check and the trophy for SEC Coach of the Year? Because whoever wins this game is going to win SEC Coach of the Year.
I think it will still be Sammy Pittman, even if they lose, because of him ending the SEC losing streak to, unfortunately, Mississippi State. I really feel like that Arkansas wins tomorrow. I'm with you. So we're both going against Vegas and against the Football Power Index. Sorry, Tom.
Sorry, Tom. Yeah, I see Anthony's comment there. Yeah, that was a little brutal.
Yes.
Hey, Anthony, type in the comments of how to pronounce that phonetically.
Yes, please. All right, next up is going to be what I'm calling, now this, of course, is a 2:30 matchup. This is the first of a huge game doubleheader on CBS, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is the last opportunity for Jarrett Garantano to get a signature win in his tenure up there and playing days at Tennessee, because they are coming to an end quick. However, I do feel like that he will not pick up a signature win in his career as they welcome in the number 6 red-hot Florida Gators to Knoxville.
I'm going to make this short and sweet. If the Tennessee Vols do not win the coin toss, Stephen, they're not going to win anything the rest of the day. The Gators are going to run this show all day long. I just don't see any chance of Tennessee being competitive. I think Tennessee's going the wrong way. I think we all see them kind of going backwards and sliding a little bit. I just do not see any chance for Tennessee to make this a ball game.
Yes. And by the way, Florida is a 17.5-point favorite, and they have a 85% chance to win this game. I'm going with the Vols.
You're going with the Vols?
No, I'm kidding. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. Gators and Dan Mullen all the way.
That's right.
All right, next up is going to be a interesting game in the Big Ten, and both of these teams, are reeling a little bit. And as a matter of fact, Indiana comes into this game without their starting quarterback because Michael Penix is out for the year with a torn ACL. It is number 12 Indiana at number 18 Wisconsin. Wisconsin has only played 2 games this year against I'm sorry, they played 3 games. My bad. And so, Indiana, they're coming in the favorite. And I'm actually going to go with the Wisconsin Badgers in this game.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me too much. Indiana was such a fun story this season. Things might be unraveling there here toward the end. And that's kind of a tough break for Indiana. But
yes.
What a wild and fun ride they gave us here in 2020. But I'm with you, Stephen. I think the Badgers might be a little too much in this one.
Yeah.
I will say this. If Wisconsin comes out a little rusty and slow, because this is only going to be their 4th game of the season, if they come out a little rusty and slow, if Indiana can jump out on them by more than a score, I like Indiana's chances, but I just don't see that happening.
Right. So, like I said, I'm going with the Badgers at home.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up is going to be a game that we just talked with Tom Luginbill about. It is going to be his game, Navy versus Tulsa. What are your thoughts on that game?
I think Navy's got a lot of problems, and, it's time to shelter up. I don't think Navy can sail through this Golden Hurricane. I really like the Golden Hurricanes in this one. I think it's going to be a little too much. As Tom mentioned, Navy didn't have the quarterback to make things happen this year.
Yes.
And they've got problems with the quarterback position. So Tulsa, as Tom told us, just don't watch them in the first half. Just go back to the second half and watch them run away with it. But, yeah, I like the Golden Hurricane on the road on this one.
I'm going with Tulsa as well in that one. And Tulsa is currently a 12-point favorite, and they have an 84% chance to win this game. All right, next up is going to be this game right here. Oh, let me hold on. Let's let the highlights continue because we actually got through with that game before the highlights played out.
Well, there you go.
So I apologize about that. But I'm about to pop up here on the screen here in just a second. This game right here has been officially canceled or postponed because of COVID issues at Vandy. So that game will not be played tomorrow.
Yeah. Even if it was, I'm still shocked that UGA is only favored by 99%.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that game has been canceled. Now, we started off the show talking about this football game right here. It is going to be BYU at Coastal Carolina. That's where the site of game day is, and BYU actually replaced the Liberty Flames. So that is going to be at 4:30 on ESPNU. BYU now opens as a 10-point favorite, and BYU has a 67% chance to win this football game. I'm going with the Cougars, and I'm going with the Cougars big. This is their only opportunity to impress the committee, and I think that they do it and do it in style.
Steven, I don't think we've had an episode of the show where we have agreed on everything, but I'm with you. I like the Cougars. I like the Cougars in a very big way. I'm not going to lie. I've been kind of pulling for the Chanticleers all season. But, I'm going to be pulling for Coastal Carolina, but I think it's a big uphill battle. I like BYU. I like BYU very big in this contest. Because
they actually now have a ranked opponent that's undefeated, and their schedule, like Tom said earlier, is not that strong. Now they get an opportunity to make it stronger. I think that they really use this opportunity to kill Coastal.
Yes.
All right, next up is going to be a underrated game in the SEC. And I'm actually going to step out here on a limb and say this. Last year, a couple of years ago, when Kentucky won or had an opportunity to win the East when they faced off against Georgia, that was a really good year for them. They had a decent year last year. And then this year is kind of iffy, but they're still a good football team. But I will say this. I'm going to go out here on the limb, and I'm going to say this. If Kentucky finds a way, for whatever reason, to lose to a 2-7 South Carolina football team this week, I think that automatically puts Mark Stoops on the hot seat. Heath, you there?
Willing to go there yet? Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
I'm not willing to go that far just yet.
Okay.
I like Stoops. I like what he's done at Kentucky. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game to say the least. But I just don't see. Well, Kentucky's been the Jekyll and Hyde team all
Yes.
year.
And
And-
that's why I feel like that if you're Stoops and Kentucky, you cannot lose this game.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything to worry about with Kentucky. I like Kentucky winning this game. I like Kentucky by multiple scores to win this game. I like Kentucky winning this game by more than 2 scores when it's all said and done.
Yeah. But, they did kind of lay that egg against the Vanderbilt team that almost came back and won. So it's very possible. And I like Big Blue Nation as well. But like I said, I really feel like if they find a way to lose to South Carolina, you pretty much have lost all the momentum that you had. And that they need to be on, the hot seat or the seat getting warmer for Mark Stoops if he loses this game.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Right.
But, I don't think we have anything to worry about. I like Stoops and his troops to win big, and win going away.
All right, now we're going to a couple of Pac-12 games. And actually, UCLA, once again, now is 500, 2-2 at Arizona State. And Arizona State has only played one football game this year, and they lost to USC. Now they're playing the other LA school, and this is a 9:30 kick on Fox Sports 1. Arizona State is only a 3-point favorite, and the Football Power Index gives them a 53% chance. I'm rolling with the Bruins getting the win, going to 3-2.
Yeah, Arizona State, a lot of layoffs, a lot of setbacks, having problems. They're going to be rusty. UCLA, man, they're up and down and all around. But if you look at the coaches in this one, do you have more faith in Chip Kelly in this one? So this is a complete toss-up. It really is. I'm going to lean UCLA, but I'm not going to be shocked if Arizona State pulls this out. But I'm going with the Sky Blue and the Champagne Bruins of UCLA.
All right. Next up is going to be now this one. The reason that we're doing this is because I would like to, on this show, pick teams and pick games with winning records of football teams. And this one is actually going to be a squeaky good little matchup tomorrow night. It is going to be 3-1 Fresno State at 5-1 Nevada. 9:30 on Fox Sports number 2. Nevada is a 7-point favorite, but Nevada only has a 57% chance to win. I'm rolling with the Bulldogs of Fresno State in this one.
Wow. I've been catching Nevada the past couple of years. Nevada's a sneaky good team, Steven. I'm kind of leaning toward the Wolfpack there. So I'm going to go with Nevada. This is the first game we're opposite on.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Nevada over the Bulldogs.
And by the way, that's at 9:30 on FS2, so I will be watching that one. All right, next up is going to be this one you're going to say I don't care about because, well, it's just that. It is going to be 2-2 Oregon State at 0-2 Utah. 9:30 ESPN. Utah is an 11-point favorite, even though they are an 0-2 football team, and the Football Power Index gives Utah a 74% chance to win. I'm actually going with the Beavers of Oregon State.
Yeah, I like the Beavers. Not in a big way. I don't think they're that team this year, but Utah, shockingly, struggling a little bit. I don't understand that. I do know this. When all the crazy COVID stuff broke out during the spring, they put all the coaches on furlough. Like no one on the coaching staff was getting paid. So there was no accountability of workouts, staying in touch, things like that. They were doing it some, yes. But, to lay off the entire staff, the whole program, and everything around it, it's kind of hard to kind of pick back up and start over again. I think that's why we're seeing Utah struggle this year. There hasn't been the accountability. There hasn't been the time spent together. There hasn't been the small things that lead to big things. Do the small things right, it always leads to big things. With that being said, the Beavers 2 weeks in a row, back to back. Hey, it's going to be win number 3.
Yes.
For the black and orange.
All right. Well, on that note, I've got to ask you.
Hit me.
What is your favorite turnover gimmick? Because that is what it is.
Yeah, it's a gimmick. It definitely is a gimmick. The turnover chain comes to mind first. Wow, Steven, I might need like a half hour to think about this and break it down and why. But without that, having that luxury, I'm just going to take the easy answer and say the turnover chain. What do you got?
Okay. The reason that I picked this.
Is it the robe?
No, sir. Check this out. The turnover chainsaw for the Beavers. Look at that, my friend. Whenever they do a touchdown, look at the Beaver right there with the chainsaw. That is impressive. I watched it when they played Washington State the first night of the Pac-12 after dark. When I saw that, I was like, that is my favorite. That is my favorite turnover gimmick right there. Give me the chainsaw, baby.
Steven, I'm going to give you some homework to do. See if you can't get you a turnover chainsaw t-shirt for the show next week.
Yeah, I don't think I can do that. That's insane, is it not?
That is pretty insane.
Hey, Mississippi State has the neck collars. Georgia has the shoulder pads, spikes. Beavers have got the darn chainsaw, my friend.
Yeah, who has the robe? I saw the robe here a couple of weeks ago.
I have no clue.
Yeah. Maybe we do that during the off season. We talk about all the turnover gimmicks.
Now,
do a whole show on it.
Now, here's something rather interesting, my friend. We actually, because of COVID, have a college football game on Sunday night this week.
I did not know that.
Sunday night, 6:30, Fox Sports 1, Washington State, and Mike Norvell. What now?
Yeah, not Mike Norvell.
No, the guy that came from Hawaii. The guy who
Mike. What is Mike's last name? I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the running gun.
Yeah.
That team is going to number 20 USC. I'm actually going in the upset here. I'm going Washington State in that game.
Yeah, the run and shoot's a fun offense, and
yes.
Mike Leach had a decent amount of success against USC. He had a lot of success
against
Oregon. So with that being said, yeah, I kind of lean the Cougars slightly, but I'm not picking them. I'm taking USC, man. The Trojans are trying to put some things together. I don't think the Trojans are going to give up on the season after their loss. So I'm going to go with USC, and I'm rolling with the Men of Troy.
That's great, man. Well, I'm going to pull you up full screen just for a second, and I'll be right back, okay?
Sure. A lot of people are talking about the Georgia Vanderbilt craziness going on. And not to make it a political issue, but everyone's making everything a political issue this year. What a great thing that happened last week with Sarah Fuller out there as a kicker, but too much of a good thing can be bad. It's kind of like giving your kid a pound of chocolate a day. That's, chocolate's good, but too much of a good thing can be bad. Same with the Sarah Fuller incident. We're starting to hear stories that this was a publicity stunt. They brought this out for that and this, and then also that Sarah gave the halftime speech last week. And that's really what upset a lot of the players on the Vanderbilt team, is that came into Sarah. Once again, too much of a good thing turns out to be a bad in Nashville. And so that's something that has to be addressed. It has to be addressed correctly. and it has to be moved forward with it. Will Vanderbilt find a way to do this? I don't know.
I agree with that. Well, Heath, it is always really exciting when we have a former player on, but today we actually have a national champion on,
Right.
from the defending national champions, LSU. Now, of course, this is a player that played back in 04 to 07, and let me go on ahead and roll the highlights for you. And as you can see behind me, I've actually got my the LSU sweater to commemorate this guy, but he is Jacob Hester. You may remember him as the gritty fullback for the LSU Tigers. He was a force to be reckoned with, and so, man, it is always exciting when we have, and I got to tell you, this guy had some wheels right there, didn't he, Heath?
Yeah, his NFL career, he was listed as a fullback, but, he played a little bit running back and fullback in college. Yeah. But, yeah, he left some guys. And look there, he ran over some folks, too. He wasn't scared to lower his shoulder.
Yes. So, without further ado, here is our friend Jacob Hester. Jacob, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. I think I just pulled my hamstring watching those highlights. I can't do that anymore. I can promise you that. But it was kind of fun to see back when I was somewhat athletic.
I got you. Well, man, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. And real quick, what are you doing now?
Yeah, so glad to be on first. And then now I'm doing a little bit of everything. So I have a daily radio show in Baton Rouge on 104.5 ESPN down here in Baton Rouge. I do Sirius XM SEC radio with Chris Doring and Peter Burns. Also work for Cox Sports Television. We do a pre- and post-game show. Do a little bit with the university, of course, with LSU as well. So really just a little bit of everything in this crazy sports media world, but enjoying every second of it.
Jacob, I'd like to ask you about your playing days. Everyone's always got great stories. What is your favorite Les Miles story?
Oh, wow. Les was such a mentor to me. He's really a father figure for me. In fact, I have 4 boys, and my 4th son is named Memphis Miles after Coach Miles. So he means a whole lot to me, but there's so many great stories about Les and so many moments that, I could share here. Of course, Les would have a tendency to kind of come up with a pregame speech, and he would go off on a tangent. Sometimes you don't really know what Les was trying to say. But, like I said, so many great memories. And I can remember, after, I believe it was right before the SEC championship game, and after someone came out and said that he was going to take the Michigan job, I just remember how mad he was and how much that upset him because, he wanted to let us know that he was committed to LSU and committed to being our coach. And, he had tears in his eyes as he was telling us, that he had no other plans to go anywhere else. And, he's a Michigan man, but he would never leave the LSU Tigers. And so for me, I know a lot of people have kind of the quirky, funny Les Miles stories, but for me, that's one that always kind of stands out to me because you could tell the passion that he had for our program and for us as student athletes. And so I always appreciate that.
A quick follow-up. You said your son is Memphis Miles. What's the story with the name Memphis? Only reason I'm asked is I'm right outside Memphis currently.
Okay, so I am a gigantic Elvis Presley fan.
Wow.
A lifelong Elvis fan. I grew up on it. I've seen all the 30-plus movies. I have every album. Christmas season's the best because the Elvis Christmas album comes out really before Thanksgiving. And so gigantic Elvis fan. There's only one Elvis. You can't name someone Elvis because there can only be one, and that's Elvis Presley. And so I finally, after a couple of tries, talked my wife in to naming our son Memphis.
Wow. Now, have you ever been to Graceland?
About 72 times, it feels like. It's funny. Anytime that LSU plays Ole Miss, and like I said, working for the university, doing some stuff on the radio network and through social media for them, I travel with the team in a normal year. And every time we play Ole Miss, they always stay in Olive Branch, Mississippi, which is great. That's fine.
That's where I'm at.
Okay, there you go. So, but I like to go off on my own. And so I pay for myself in this one trip. I always go rent a car. I drive to Graceland because they now have a hotel right there in Graceland, and I stay there by myself because I'm not going to be that close to Graceland and not go.
That's awesome, man.
Now I got to ask, your first trip to Graceland, what was the one thing that just wowed you?
I thought for me, of course, like the jungle room's awesome. Of course, loving to see all the cars and the airplane. But Elvis's room, where he had all the TVs, where he could watch whatever he wanted back then, to be able to have that technology, to me, I thought that's really cool, even at a young age, because you know, being born in the '80s, growing up in the '80s, I'd never seen more than one TV in the same room, and so for him to have that technology back then to watch football or whatever it was he was watching, I always thought that was cool.
That's what I was going to follow up with. Do you know why he had all the TVs? It was because he wanted to watch football on Sundays.
Okay, see,
there you go. So yeah, he had one for each station, so he could watch them all. That's crazy.
Well, Jacob, let's go back to your playing days for a second. If you could name one memory or an exciting event that happened while you were playing, what would it be and why?
You know, so many great memories, and being fortunate enough to be part of multiple teams that had a chance to at least play for a championship. It's hard for me to pick just one. The 07 Florida game was a battle that I'll never forget. We went 5 for 5 on 4th down against mighty Tim Tebow. I mean, it was the height of Tebow time, and Florida was so good. They were so talented. So that game sticks out. 06, being able to play in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame. You know, growing up, everybody knows the brand of Notre Dame, and I grew up and I'm Irish Catholic, and so that was a fun experience to be able to beat them in our home state. But 05 to me is a year that stands out maybe more than any other because of Hurricane Katrina. That was a very difficult time in not only the state of Louisiana, but on the Gulf Coast. So many people went through so many hardships during that time. And we had a game that was scheduled to be played in Baton Rouge against Arizona State. And basically the week of, which now in this 2020 football season doesn't seem crazy, but back then it was. We moved that game from Baton Rouge to Tempe, Arizona. Right. And to truly feel like you're playing for your state, you're playing for everyone that's an LSU fan, just to help them escape just for a couple of hours from what they were going through. Had an opportunity to block a punt in that game, and my roommate Craig Stelch picked it up for the score. And it was true utopia. It's just that, you know, for just a couple hours to forget about all the things that were going on back home, and for, you know, us to be able to give those people just an escape just for a little bit, because so much more work had to be done. There's, you know, no question about that. But that's a memory to me just because of the meaning behind that game that probably stands out more than others.
Wow. Well, you know, you kind of had a storybook ending to your career. Your last game was the national championship game, correct?
Yeah, it was. It was against Ohio State. Yeah, in the Superdome. So that place is special if you're from Louisiana. I mean, it's truly, it's where championships are won. That's where the high school state championships are played. That's where I was fortunate enough to win a national championship. And LSU just won another national championship in that building in 19. They won one there in 03 as well. So that building, man, it just like it, you know, when you walk into it, you have a championship game feel. So to beat a blue blood in Ohio State, in our home state, in the Superdome, that, man, it's just, you know, to win a national championship, there's only one of those every single year. And it was even more special to do it the way we did it, you know, getting into that game after losing our last regular season game, you know, to have 2 losses, both in triple overtime that year. No team has had 2 losses and won a national championship. But, you know, the way that year worked out, and I do feel like we were the best football team. Yeah. We got an opportunity to play in that game. And, you know what? I've got a lifelong friend out of James Laurinaitis who played for Ohio State in that game. Oh. I had so much respect for him in that game that we still stay in contact to this day. So there was a lot of great things that night in New Orleans.
You know, a quick funny story on the side. Laurinaitis called out our friend Steven here on the show one time. His dad called him out. Of course, yes. His dad, famous wrestler, was he Hawk or Animal? He was Hawk, wasn't he?
It was Animal.
It was Animal.
Animal.
I got to hear that backstory.
Yeah. Well, I was actually, if you don't mind, Heath, I'll tell. I was actually a Mississippi State fan, and right. I was hooting and hollering about Mississippi State, and we were. It was the week that Mississippi State and Dak Prescott went up to Missouri on that Thursday night. So on Tuesday, I put out a rant, and I put my WWE replica belt in the background behind me, which I still have. And he took exception to that because he thought it was a fake belt. And so he called me out and said that Mississippi State will be lucky to beat Missouri, and it was really an awesome time for him to call me out. I really felt like I had made it then.
Hey, to the Mississippi State guy that's ranting and raving about Mizzou with the WWE Championship belt in the background. Well, take it from me, someone that has owned about 10 of those belts. You ain't no champion, and Mississippi State's going to be lucky to be 10-2. They'll be lucky. They won't even make the Final Four in the playoffs, so quit your whining and quit your complaining. Mizzou's got a better chance, even though they haven't scored a touchdown in a month. And when Mississippi State grows up, bro, then maybe they'll be in the same class as OHIO. That's right, Ohio State, where my son James went. So, you with the fake replica belt, don't be crying and whining about Mizzou. Mississippi State would be lucky if they could beat Mizzou. Oh, what a rush.
Yeah, that's like one of the greatest tag teams in WWE history right there.
Yes.
Road Warriors. Yeah, absolutely.
So Jacob, are you a wrestling fan?
I was when I was younger in the 80s. I mean, growing up in Shreveport, Louisiana, it's actually, a wrestling town. They used to have a bunch of wrestling events in the Hirsch Coliseum. My dad was a police officer, so he would always end up working security at the wrestling events, and me and my brothers would go. Now, they still keep up with it to this day, but I was a big, of course, Jake the Snake Roberts fan because of the name, and definitely had my day when I enjoyed watching it.
Now I've got to ask, when you were a little kid and your dad was working the events and you went, what was one of your favorite things that you saw at the event as a kid?
Oh, I just love the energy of it. It was a show, and they put on a show. But as soon as they came out to wrestle, man, I loved the energy that everybody had. And it didn't matter if there was 15 people in the stands or if there was 1,500 people in the stands. They came out with the same juice, and I always appreciated that.
I've got to do one thing real quick. I'm going to geek out a little bit. You can't see me. He was always my favorite, man.
No, it's funny. So, like I said, I have 4 boys, and one of my sons actually really enjoys wrestling and watching it, and that's his guy, John Cena.
Yes. Let's go back to college football for a second. Obviously, you say that you work for the university. Can you tell us a funny Coach O story?
Oh, man, I love Coach O. Coach O is, a guy that loves being the head coach at LSU, and he's always on. And he's always thinking about what he can do to get his team better or to get his team energized. And I remember I'm hosting the national championship parade. So I'm emceeing the event, and we're in the PMAC. And, there's 13 to 15,000 people. I don't remember the number. I mean, it is packed to the rafters. And I'm sitting there before I interview Coach O, and we're having a private conversation. But I love sharing this story because I don't think he would mind me sharing this.
Right.
We're sitting here, and we're in it. I mean, we are celebrating maybe the greatest college football season that we've ever seen. And he looks over to me, says, I cannot wait to put this to rest and get started on the next season. He said, I cannot wait to get to off-season workouts because all this is great, but there's more work to be done. So, I mean, even in that moment, did he enjoy the championship run? Yeah, absolutely he did. But he wanted to go ahead and say, no, we still got more work to do. We've got to get better. And I love that about Coach O, that he's always on. He's always thinking about how his team can get better and how they can continue to work to, not just win a championship, but to win multiple.
And also going from last year to this year, did you honestly see this big of a drop-off with this LSU Tiger football team? And what can they do to get back some of their mojo from last year?
I didn't see this drop-off. Now, were they going to do what they did last year? No. I mean, like I said, I think that's the greatest college football season that we've ever seen. You lose 14 draft choices. You lose 18 guys total to the NFL through, undrafted free agents as well. And that's not an excuse. Look, you're LSU. You're going to have double-digit numbers probably every year that put their names in the NFL draft. But, this season being what it was, you're breaking in a new defensive coordinator, a new passing game coordinator, and an offseason that had, just craziness all across it. And then you have opt-outs. That's not something that any of us counted on. You lose a Jamar Chase, Tyler Shelvin, You just lost Terrace Marshall the other day. Still have, a couple games left here in the season. Kerry Vincent Jr. is a guy that played a lot of football. You lose him as well. And so it's hard. The attrition that this program lost, I don't think any team has ever dealt with this much attrition. So, 10-game season, if you would have told me, hey, they're going to go 7-3, I probably said, okay, that makes sense. With who they lost, I can get on board with that. I didn't see this, but the roster management's been extremely difficult for this coaching staff because of the opt-outs, not just the NFL losses, but they do have the number 2 recruiting class in the country right now. LSU's not a place that makes excuses. In fact, you won't hear anyone make an excuse. It is what it is. Since 2000, they've won at least 8 games or more, which when you think about that, it's an incredible run. I mean, even like Florida have had 4-win seasons. Alabama, Nick's first year, has 6 wins. I mean, there's a lot of schools that have always, been blue bloods, but they've had that 500 season or maybe even a little worse. LSU in the last 20 years, they haven't had that. So, this isn't familiar for LSU fans that were born in, the mid-'90s. Now, I was born in the mid-'80s, so I remember Curly Hallman and Mike Archer. I remember those days, but it's been a long time since they had those days. And I truly think this isn't me being, a homer, having purple and gold glasses. I think this is a one-off. I think this is an outliner. I don't think this is where the program's headed or anything like that.
Well, let me just go ahead real quick and ask this. Do you think Bo Pelini was the right hire for Coach O in the offseason?
I'm always going to be in Bo's corner. I'll be honest with you. And maybe it's because I spent so much time with him when he was the defensive coordinator the first time.
Right.
He was a guy that he always helped us out. I was an offensive player, right? What Bo would do after a Thursday practice, he would come over to me and Matt Flynn and say, hey, here's what they do on defense. Here's what you might need to watch out for. Like, he would give us tips and reminders. He didn't have to do that. So he's a player's coach. For whatever reason, the message hasn't correlated to the players. A lot of that's probably without the offseason that we typically have. The last 2 games out against Arkansas, they went, 0 on third down against LSU. They just held Kellen Mond to 11 of 34 performance, and Kellen Mond has improved this year. He was that quarterback that we thought he would be last year, right? He was playing really well, and they held them, the best third down team in the country, 63%. They held them to 2 of 16 on third down. Right. So, there's changes. They're getting better. Is it going to be enough to slow down the juggernaut that is Alabama? Well, that's a very difficult task, but they are improving. Like I said, I'm always going to be in Bo's corner. I'd like to see how they finish this season, but on paper, when they made the hire, yeah, absolutely, I was floored.
Right.
To follow up on that, what do you remember the most influential thing or the biggest tip that Bo Pelini gave you during your playing days of something that was just came true, that you knew it was going to happen, and he's like, wow, Coach Pelini was right about that. They are trying to do this. Any story on that during your playing days?
No, and it's something, it might sound simple, but it's something even I remember when we played Florida in 2007, he came to me and he said, hey, something I noticed about their defensive guys, they play high. And I was like, what do you mean, Coach? He goes, well, they've always been the biggest and the baddest. He said they play high even when they go against bigger running backs. And in college, I was 240 pounds. Right. He said, if you get out in the open, they are going to try to take you high. They're not going to try to cut you like a lot of teams do, get at your knees where you have to try to hurdle them or do something different. He said they're going to play high. And I remember thinking about that all week, and he was right. And so it gave me the opportunity. I think we played one of those highlights. Once I got into the second level, I knew that the safety, Major Wright, was going to play high, and he wasn't going to take me down low. And so of trying to, hurdle him or do something different, I knew I was going to have the opportunity to have lower pad level than he had and get a couple extra yards.
Well, speaking of Alabama this upcoming weekend, how difficult is it going up against a Nick Saban defense?
Well, Nick does such a great job, and I played for Nick. I know his process, and he covers every base. And there's nothing left uncovered, and so he's always going to have a great plan for you. That defense has gotten better each and every week since that Ole Miss game when Ole Miss was able to score 40-plus points on them. I think they figured out who they are. He's always going to give you different looks. He's going to bring people from different areas. He's going to have his guys coached up. We saw some coverage breaks earlier in the season. Those seem to have gone away. And so, when you play a Nick Saban defense, it's going to be an honest defense. There's not going to be a lot of missed assignments on the other end.
Well, and my final question for you is this. LSU upsets Alabama Saturday if this happens by LSU.
LSU would have to have an unbelievable offensive performance. I don't even think it's as many struggles as the defense has had this year. Alabama's going to get their points on whoever they play. That's just the way they're built. A lot like last year's LSU team. Like, it didn't matter who you had out there. The Joe Burrow and company were going to score their points. Yes. So it's going to take an unbelievable offensive performance from a freshman quarterback, a true freshman quarterback. And it's either going to be TJ Finley or Max Johnson. We really don't know right now. But the offensive line struggled against Texas A&M. Texas A&M brought looks that LSU had no answer for. So they've got to figure that out because it's a copycat league. Alabama's going to do the same things that Texas A&M did because that's smart football.
Yes.
You lose Terrace Marshall, your leading receiver, your go-to guy. So freshmen are going to have to stand tall and stand up. Eric Gilbert, a talented true freshman, one of the best talents in the country. He's going to have the best game of his career, maybe his life. So for me, it's, man, you got to go score for score with Alabama, and that's a tall task.
Yes.
A follow-up to that, or what you mentioned, you're talking about the two freshman quarterbacks there at LSU. Who do you like and why moving forward?
Well, they both bring something different. TJ Finley's got a big league arm. I mean, he can make any throw on the football field. But when you start talking about, who should be the quarterback, when your offensive line's struggling like it is, and I don't know if they can get that fixed before the year ends, maybe you put in a Max Johnson because he's a little bit more mobile. He's more of a dual threat quarterback. And so this sounds crazy, but he can escape a rush a little bit. If there's a free release guy right in his face, as we saw against Texas A&M, he can get out of that and try to make something happen. So to no fault of the quarterbacks, really more the protection, Max Johnson probably gives you the best chance just because he is a little bit more mobile. TJ Finley, if it's a perfect pocket, he can make any throw on the field, like I mentioned. But right now, with where they're struggling on the offensive line, maybe Max makes more sense.
I got you. Hey, going to your professional career, you spent a little time with the Broncos. Did you have any run-ins with John Elway during your time there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, John Elway was so good to me. And I was in Denver for about a year and a half, and, a great Elway story. We're at his restaurant, Elway's. I mean, he's got a restaurant that's very successful in Denver. It's great food, by the way. And, I was a veteran player. I was in my 6th year, but I was a guy that was new to the Broncos. And, he could have just gone about his day, but he found out that I was at the restaurant, and he was actually there as well. And he calls me and my brother-in-law, who was with me at the time. He actually was playing football at North Alabama. And I think he was on a summer break or something. They had like a 2-week break. And so he came up to Denver to hang out with us. And Elway finds out we're in the restaurant, and he's like, hey, Hester, you and your brother-in-law, y'all come back here. And so we walked back there, and we got to sit and talk with John Elway. Even though I was a Bronco, it was still cool for an hour. And my brother-in-law was eating every bit of it up. Here he is. He's a 19-year-old kid. He's playing football at North Alabama, and he just so happens to be in Elway's. And John Elway sits back there and talks to us for an hour. It was something that was pretty cool that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I've got to ask, what was something fun that you remember from that conversation?
So he's a great football mind. Like, he remembers, everything. And I forget who it was he knew. Like, you could say a school or a team, and he would say, oh yeah, I know this guy that played there. And of course, when I said he plays at North Alabama, he's like, oh yeah. And then starts going off on something that happened there, like in the early 90s or late 80s or something, where, John Elway he's from, he went to Stanford. How's he know about North Alabama? But he always knew something about somebody from everywhere.
Yeah. Now, to wrap it up, John Elway being a California kid, you spent some time with the Chargers. I lived in San Diego briefly. San Diego loved the Chargers. I was heartbroken when they moved to Los Angeles. But tell us about your time in San Diego.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Great city. I had great teammates, had a great head coach in North Turner. We had success there. We won a couple of AFC West titles and was the number 1 seed one year in the AFC playoffs. It's a great town because it's a gritty town. It's a military town. It's got some grit to it. Nobody's really from San Diego, but it's okay because, everybody moves there and they kind of make up what San Diego is. And we thoroughly enjoyed our time there. 2 of my sons were born out in California. My sister-in-law actually moved out there with us to help my wife since she wasn't going to know anyone. And when we got signed by Denver, we're like, all right, you ready to go? She goes, I think I'm going to stay out here. I think I'm going to stay out here in San Diego. And so she's still out there to this day. So we try to go back as many times as we can. We made great friendships. We had a great church base there. Our pastor was from Pensacola, Florida, of all places. So we had some Southern guys there as well. So still watch our church service every Sunday on YouTube, which is something cool that we're able to do, is to still be around that church family. So great times, great memories, and we try to get back anytime we can.
I hear you now. Did you have any run-ins when you went down to Tijuana? That's the thing. When everyone moves to San Diego, they make a run for the border, head to Tijuana.
No. We were told from day one, do not take your butt to Tijuana. The closest I ever got to Tijuana, they have the outlet mall. That's the last U.S. exit before you get into Mexico. That's as close as I got to Tijuana.
That's great.
Well, Jacob, real quick, I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't mind. I'm going to pull you up full screen, and I would like for you to do your best Coach O impression for us. Are you okay with that?
Oh, man, it's not going to be a good one, but yeah, I can do it for you.
Okay, go ahead.
My favorite thing that Coach O does is he sets his jaw. That means he's ready. So anytime you can see him, go Tigers, and he sets it, that has me ready to go.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for your time of joining us. And before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to plug, give a shout out to, or tell people how they can listen to you and find you?
No, I appreciate that. Like I said, man, we have a daily show, Hanging with Hester and Hanny, on 104.5 ESPN here in Baton Rouge. We're from noon to 3 Central Time. I'm part of, like I mentioned, the SEC radio team on Sirius XM, Channel 374, me, Peter Burns, and Chris Doring. We do SEC this morning, and that show runs from 7 to 10 Central Time. Also, you can catch our radio show on Cox Sports Television every single day. We're simulcast on TV as well. We do a LSU Game Day live show on the weekends on Cox Sports Television. It's on in 19 states, and so maybe if you're, somewhere in the Gulf Coast, it goes all the way out to California, Ohio, so you can check your local listings. Maybe you can find us on CST, Cox Sports Television.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for your time once again, and I'm going to leave you with this. Go Tigers!
There you go. Absolutely, man. Anytime.
All right. Man, always a blessing to get a former player on, and especially a national champion. So thank you, Jacob Hester, for coming on.
Yeah, we got to give Jacob a title, like the workaholic of the Bayou. I mean, that guy's busy. He's all over the place, but good for him.
Yes. Heath, I got to tell you, man, that was a wonderful interview, and we've had two really good interviews today. One with Tom Luginbill, and then, of course, that one with Jacob Hester.
I wish when that interview was playing, we pre-recorded that interview earlier in the week. I wish I'd have asked Tom, with Tom being a San Diego guy, knowing that he loves the Chargers, what is his best memory of Jacob Hester? Tell us a Jacob Hester story. I'm sure Tom could have given us one or two. But, yeah, today was an excellent show. We had two great guests, and Tom Luginbill and Jacob Hester, and today was a very fun show.
And before we go, the reason I wanted to do the Jacob Hester interview before we do this is because now we get to pick the battle between the Crimson Tide and the Tigers of LSU. Now, if you will remember, last year LSU knocked off Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Now the return game is in Baton Rouge. This game is an ideal nighttime game for CBS tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Alabama is right at a 30-point favorite, and they have a 94% chance to win this game. I'm telling you right now, my friend, roll Tide and roll Tide big in this game. I think they blow out LSU.
I definitely think it's going to be a blowout. Will they cover that 30 points? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is sad to say that might be the only reason I watch this game, is to see if they cover those points.
Right.
More by 30. LSU, we all know the problems they've got this year. on both sides of the ball, and folks opting out. And as Jacob said in the interview,
Yeah.
it's just been different, and it's been a challenge. I do not LSU at all in this matchup. It's going to be a long, long game for the Tigers.
And if you don't mind, if LSU doesn't win the coin flip, they're not going to win anything else.
That is correct, my friend.
All right, man. Well, I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. That's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. Go out there, be safe, enjoy your college football this weekend, and we will be back here right on the Stingray Show next Tuesday with the Mississippi State and Auburn game next week. We are going to have two guests, two former players, one from each school, to drop by to talk about that big game next week.
Very special thank you to Tom Luginbill for coming on. Also, very special thank you to Jacob Hester, has taken time out of his very busy schedule to join us. And again, thank you to all of you that have tuned in to watch us here on the Stingray Show.
And tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody to tune in to the best sports talk show around the country, the Stingray Show. We'll see you guys next week only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass, launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty, what an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry